to Living with Moxie, where Shafali Burns and Donna Martouche, authors, entrepreneurs, and leaders in the world of business, education, and coaching, share ideas, resources, and strategies from the hosts and their guests to provide you with the leverage you require to meet and exceed your business and personal goals. Join us for unique insights from outstanding achievers in business, relationships, health, finances, and living as they share strategies, wisdom, and lessons learned on the path to extraordinary living. Are you ready to live with Moxie?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Living with Moxie here on OMTimes Radio. I'm your host, Shafali Burns. Thank you so much for being here. My co-host, Donna Martouche, is trying to get on. Maybe it's some Mercury retrograde happening here. But so she'll join us as soon as she can. And today we are talking about judgment. And this is such a huge, huge topic. And I have to say, it's one of those things that has affected my life tremendously. Judgment of myself, judgment from others, being judged by others, playing small or not really living up to my fullest potential because fearing the judgments of other people, so many different things. So how many ways does judgment show up in your life and stop you from living with Moxie, stop you from accessing and receiving joy, love, wealth, success, and connection and being yourself, right? How do you go from judgment to allowance and no judgment? And that's the thing. It's like sometimes that is the biggest thing for me is like I'm not really being all that I can be. I'm not really being true to myself. I am letting, comparisons sometimes get in the way or the fear of what will people think. It's like really, but it's true. We kind of let that stop us, fear of that judgment. And so what does that really mean, right? That fear of judgment or that stopping us, it's putting restrictions on our possibilities, right? Putting restrictions on who and what we can be, and, what we can do in life and what we can create, so it's really an interesting interesting thing that goes on in our lives. And, so many people in all walks of life are affected by judgment. So think about it in your own life, where have you stopped yourself from doing something, being something, because you were worried about what people would think and how they would look at you and those feelings, right? And just think about that for a moment. Take a moment and just think, where have you experienced that for yourself? And where have you judged yourself? That I'm not good enough, or I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not smart enough, or, and so many things we say in our mental mind chatter, right? That negative mind chatter that we, sometimes can have a lot of, which is really scary because it's limiting us, right? And so judgments, whether they're good or bad, so far I've been talking about negative judgments, but it's also those positive judgments that kind of stick you. They kind of make you think that you're really, really good, which is great, but then your life goes in a different way, or you start to feel things in a different way, or you start to think things in a different way. So again, you're limiting yourself. You're not being totally open to all possibilities. And so that's what judgment does. It stops us from all possibilities. It restricts us from having all of ourselves. And that is, yeah, I've experienced it in my life. That the whole playing small that we sometimes do. That's caused by judgments. Sometimes judgments of ourselves. Sometimes judgments of what we think people are going to judge us on. And, so what do you do? How do you cope with that? And, the first thing is, of course, being aware of it, being aware that you are judging yourself, being aware that you're limiting yourself because of perceived judgments from other people. And, then it's a matter of looking at that and seeing how it's affecting you. And do you want it to? Then it becomes a choice, right? It becomes a choice of, okay, This is what I'm feeling. These are the thoughts that I'm getting. And do I want to let them stop me? Do I want to let them limit me? Do I want to let them control the trajectory of my life? Um, so these are, obviously, reflective types of questions, right? We really need to think about how, we are being affected by everything in our life, right? And then the choice of, do we want to continue on this path, or do we want to choose something else? And so, we've talked about choice, I think before on this show and many others. We always talk about choice because everything that we do is based on choice in every moment. And so part of that becomes, are we choosing to judge ourselves? Are we choosing to judge others? Are we choosing to let the judgments of others impact us? Wonderful. So,
Thank
Donna,
you.
welcome.
I'm here.
Yay.
A little bit of technical glitches, not sure what happened, but Chris saved the day, so here I am.
Wonderful. Glad to have you here. And I was just talking about judgment, right? And different types of judgments from others, and what we all experience in ourselves, comparing, and how it can start to limit us sometimes, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. I can tell you story after story on that one.
I agree.
Yeah,
And that's the thing. It's like we do this all the times to ourselves, so it's not just the judgments from other people, but it's the judgments that we have of ourselves, of our life, of our opportunities, of our businesses. I mean, everything. And it becomes such a habit sometimes that we don't even recognize it, right?
Yeah, it definitely does. I think, it's so funny because I taught a class related to allowance and letting go of judgment. And there were people in my family who took that class, and I have to give them so much credit for even choosing to do that, because even being in a class with family when your family is facilitating could be hard enough. But my mom, and I think she was so brave for doing it, literally struggled with it for a bit, because it was sort of like, we kind of grew up thinking that criticism, if you do it constructively, as I'm doing quotes with my fingers, but you guys can't see it, is a way of caring, right? Like, it's sort of like, oh, well, you did that, but if you did it this way, it could be so much better. Or so we were playing around with the idea, well, then how do you even give somebody feedback and it not be judgment, right? And it was something that was so interesting, because it's something that we've even been taught was a way of, I once heard somebody say it's a way of, we disguise judgment in a way of caring often in the way we grow up in society nowadays. And it was sort of like, it's just an interesting thing that it's so commonplace. I mean, even look at what would school be like if there was no judgment, right? How would you teach people without judging? It's something that people struggle with in conversations. But I certainly have allowed the fear of judgment and my judgments of myself to stop me from doing a lot in my life until the last 5 years. So
yeah, me too.
It's interesting to see, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And and that's the thing. It's like, I was talking around now generally, but sometimes even like our own judgments, but the judgments from other people, it has taken me a while to not take those judgments personally. So when I first started doing my telesummit, for example, and sometimes I would get a negative feedback and I would take it to heart and I would be like down for the count. It's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they said that. Or, I would take it so personally. And then now, I've gotten much better at it. It's like, okay, they're not really judging me. They're coming from a place wherever they are and they're experiencing something. But what they're saying doesn't really affect me as much. It seems like it just goes through me, and I'm aware of the situation, and then I can choose to, okay, is that something I can correct? Is that something I can do better next time? Like, what can I do with it instead of letting it affect me at such a deep level as it used to?
Right. I agree with you. I did so many things that I didn't choose a lot of things growing up for fear of, or anticipation of how others may judge me. So, for example, I worked at the Psychic Fairs reading tarot cards since the time I was about 15 years old, and I worked with John Edwards, the medium, who everybody knows now because now he's in a whole different world than he was when we were both the same age, when we were both, 15, 16 years old working at the fairs. And he grew to be, even though there was lots of times that we were both very uncomfortable with coming into all of the talents or abilities, or just even beginning to know the fact that you have access to these things and learning how to use them. There was many times as teenagers we were uncomfortable with that, and then you sort of work through that. And I didn't work through that for years. For years, due to certain situations and scenarios that happened, I allowed them to sort of shut down a side of me that became really a great side of me that has truly been a gift to me my whole entire life. But they shut it down for a while and didn't allow it to show up, which then, you kind of wind up depressed or withdrawn or only showing pieces of yourselves to certain people. Like, you wind up with this group of people where this Donna shows up here with this group and this Donna shows up here with this group. And, you get along with all these groups, but they none of them know the whole entire person that you truly are. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I do. Yeah, and it's kind of like we put ourselves in little compartments, right now, and when we're doing that, we're kind of like hiding pieces of ourselves. We're not being totally fully present in any moment. We're not being totally fully present to everybody else. We're not being the greater contribution that we can be because we're still hiding and holding back, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even working in some places, like there was when I first started out in my current career, I had a supervisor who was trying to be very protective and cared for me very much. I mean, she was just an incredible, brilliant woman. But in her caring of me, she said, I just want you to hide for 3 years so that we know that we can keep you safe, because this is a vicious place to be working. And then, so then you practice that sort of hiding, per se, for 3 years. And I can't tell you how many times she made it clear, like if I was going to be doing a training for 150, 200 people, and it could have possibly been better than someone else's training that was going to be on the stage at the same time as me, she would literally ask me to tone it down because there are people who might not be able to handle their perception of the fact that I outdid or overdid or did something, and I don't even believe in the competition part. But just to make sure that I didn't take center stage, I'm sorry, we got to go to break. I apologize.
Yeah, we'll be back here on Living with Moxie on OMTimes Radio right after these messages.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Spiritual, metaphysical, green living, psychic, alternative healing, life coaching. Do any of these or similar terms apply to your business or cause? If so, you are in a niche market with a very specific audience. Conscious Gate PR is the world's leading conscious public relations agency. With a global reach of over 4 million and growing, we offer comprehensive media campaigns to our targeted market. Learn more at ConsciousGatePR.com. Conscious marketing for conscious minds.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
There is no death, only a change of worlds. Chief Seattle. Deborah Livingston is an award-winning intuitive psychic medium whose international services include mediumship, spiritual assessment, animal communication, and spiritual mentoring. She is a published author and a trained shaman. Deborah provides evidential messages from spirit and departed loved ones. Learn more at deblivemedium.com. That's DEBLIV medium.com.
I left my heart in San Francisco.
Hi, this is Tony Bennett, and I'm a volunteer for LifeBeat. The music industry fights AIDS. We all know that there are some new medications for people with AIDS, but there is still no cure. This is why I personally volunteer for LifeBeat. The AIDS crisis is not over, and people need help. Volunteer for your local AIDS organization. They need you.
everyone. We are back here on Living with Moxie. I'm your host, Shefali Burns, and we have Donna Martouche here with us as well. And today we're talking about judgment and how it can make such a big impact on your life. And right before we went on break, we were talking about hiding. Sometimes we hide ourselves. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, as well as judgments, and also how what we can do with those judgments, so that we are not affected as much, and that we can continue to live our life with ease and grace, and create the life that we desire. So, one of the things that Donna was just talking about was hiding, and that's such a heavy feeling, isn't it, when you're hiding yourself? It kind of, for me, it feels as if like you're not trusting yourself, and there's something bad about you, and that's why you're hiding, and it's not always that way, but that's how it feels for me. So, and we all do it. I mean, I'm still hiding, I'm still playing small, I'm still not doing all the things that I would like to do. I have these wonderful ideas that come to me in the middle of the night, and then when I wake up in the morning, it's like, oh, maybe not, because I'm worried about what people will think, it's like, so it's still an issue with me as well. So let's talk about what we can do with judgments so that we can start to accept ourselves, so that we can allow the fullness of our being to shine in this world, Donna.
Yeah, I think it's sort of interesting for me, the learning to receive judgment from other people and not make it significant was so much easier for me than the learning to stop judging myself. So I don't know if that's similar for you, but the tools that I've used I mean, the first thing is, and Cass Thomas said it when she was on the show with us, is, no one can do you but you. I mean, you're the only one who can do you, and there is no other person that is you. So, when you really own that, the idea of competition or what anybody else thinks about your skills, levels, and abilities sort of starts to become a lot smaller. And and what I've also found for me is sort of asking myself questions, allowing myself to sort of receive and let the judgments flow through me. And what I've often been able to see in that is almost sort of an awareness of what somebody else is feeling about themselves, and that being the sort of impetus for them feeling the need to say that, which is all fine and well, but it often isn't even about you. Like, it's not even related to you. Yeah. So the ideas of getting judgment from somebody else has become so easy for me. Like, that's almost sort of like, you can send it to me and that's fine, and I'm so willing to receive it, and that's okay. And I'm not, I don't have to analyze it or figure it out or try and make you like me. The parts where I get more stuck are the places where I've decided that I'm bad or wrong. And, and even though those become less and less over time, they're still there. There's still some that are there that are big ones for me. So I'm still working on those. But the idea of the first one is receiving. So what happens when I notice that somebody is doing judgment, I lower my barriers, which is the exact opposite of what you want to do. Usually, that somebody is sort of throwing judgment at you, and people sort of put up their walls and they get really defensive. And then I think about the fact, I did karate, I did martial arts a lot in my life. I did, or even if you take like a driving class, what you start to learn is that often your automatic reaction is the exact opposite of what you could be doing that would benefit you even more. And that very much is the case when it comes to judgment and receiving judgment. So instead of putting my barriers up, I lower my barriers and receive and allow it to flow through me, and I don't give it the thought and the significance. And when I don't do that, it's like non-existent. It's like the air that you're breathing, it's just gone. So what I have found is that part has become very easy for me using that tool. And sometimes it completely dissipates the judgment. And in other times, people really need you to respond to the judgment, so they amp some things up. So then there's other tools that you could use. But what about you? Have you found one that really works for you?
Well, I've just found that for myself, when somebody's judging me, I just look at, okay, they must be hurting in some way. They must be going through something, and they're having a bad day. So, first I always look at, okay, is there something about the situation that I can change? Because sometimes, like, maybe there was a technical glitch of some sort. Maybe there's something that I can fix. And then I just send them blessings. So it's become easier, much, much easier than in the past. And I find that, sharing and showing and expressing compassion for them from where they are right now in that space helps me to lighten up and not get affected by the judgment. So it's but the other part of it, judging myself, yeah, that's still working on that, definitely still working on that. But even with that, it's about, how can we just allow ourselves to be, how can we love ourselves enough to recognize the judgment and then allow it to flow through, even, through us, our own judgments, because it all comes down to loving ourselves, accepting ourselves, allowing ourselves to be. And that's what we're not doing. We're resisting, we're holding back, we're trying to control some sort of situation, and I think that's where the judgments come into place, right?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Or sometimes, in some places, I think, when I step back and one of the first things I start to do is if I notice that I judge myself, because one of the things that has been my target for the last year and a half is becoming a lot more conscious of my thoughts and how I'm speaking to myself, but also if I'm choosing thoughts that are supporting the creating of everything that I'd love to have in my life. And, I'm far from perfect when it comes to that. You start out with everything more naturally being sort of on the other side of what it is that you truly would love to create. And it takes time for you to even realize how many thoughts that you've allowed to go through your mind that don't serve you. And then for you to be able to stop them, and then for you to be able to stop them and replace them with something else until that something else becomes more the positive, more the habit. I mean, that's what I should say. So there's been steps, and it's been huge for me over the last year, and interesting because I've had some scenarios where I've really had to use tools to practice it. So one of the first things I do is I ask myself, well, what is this? Like if I'm judging myself on something, it could be the way I look in a dress, or, my hair didn't come out right, or I needed something to be perfect and I've decided that it's not, or whatever those things are, right? And ironically, those all three had to do with image, right? The way that you present yourself, or whatever that is. But what I would then do is sort of just step back and say, okay, what is this? Because sometimes I even realize when I ask that question is that those words and thoughts aren't even mine, and I can easily just let them go. So what is it, and is it even mine? And it could be someone else's judgments that I've bought, like you have to look a certain way, you have to be a perfect weight, your body has to be this, or whatever that is. And then I can release it, and then I can choose something else. And I go into words and thoughts related to appreciation. So, this last couple of years with my body has been tremendous. I had some real struggles with my body. And so I shift then, and I go into the appreciation for being able to stand and put my feet on the floor, to wake up, to be able to see the beautiful colors in the world and hear the birds in the park. And then I shift to appreciation. And then I spend a lot more time in appreciation each day, and it adds up. And it eventually just starts to shift so that it's more of where my thoughts are rather than less of it. But that, I'd be lying if I didn't say it's still a work in progress, and I've been consciously working on it for a year and a half, because it hasn't been my lifetime habit to be that kind to myself and that nurturing to myself, not even close to my lifetime habit. It was the exact opposite. I needed to be perfect, and I could never be good enough, not for me, not for anybody else.
And that's a good point that you made, is that you are consciously working on this, that it's a habit that you're changing, and the first step is to become aware of it, and that, it is a work in progress. You are a work in progress. It's going to continue, and some days it's going to be great, and other days like, oh, okay, I didn't do that well today on the judgment piece, but that's okay. It's like, the more aware you are of it, the more you can change it, so it's like being conscious and changing it and then replacing with something else and seeing how that feels. Look, seeing how that starts to change your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions throughout the day. Is going to make a huge
you see how
impact.
that feels and how that changes everything. And also it's like, what if you were in allowance of all of it and you were just able to say, it's so cool that I realized that I could actually do this better if I did. I can create something even greater. So then it's not that what just happened was a waste or something that you needed to judge, but it was actually information that you're really grateful for because it helped you create the next step that is going to be even greater than the one before, right? So it becomes appreciation for every step before instead of judgment. It starts to really shift. It just takes some time for you to be willing to do that because it's not how we're taught to speak to ourselves.
No, definitely not. And that's a key point too, the appreciation of even recognizing when you're judging, because when there's appreciation, it's a much lighter feeling, and it's much more expansive and it's more I was going to say constructive, but I'm not sure if that's the right word I want to use, but you can change it, it's more flowing. And so appreciation for, everything in your life, those good days, those bad days, those negative thoughts, those thoughts that are not serving you, looking at them, seeing them, and appreciating that you are seeing them, is going to start to shift
So
that awareness.
before we go to the next break, and we listen to all of the OMTimes information, OMTimes radio information and sponsors, everyone, if you're listening now or you listen later, grab a piece of paper and just write down what it is that you'd love to do and what judgments or fear of judgments from yourself or others is stopping you. And we can start with that when we come back from break, because I think identifying what you just said, Shefali, is so perfect. It's sort of like we keep ourselves small just to avoid it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wonderful. So we'll be back in just a few moments here on Living with Moxie.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organisation, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at omtimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hello! Join us, Lisa Berry and Michelle Carter, every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for the Mindset Makeover, What's Possible. Get ready to become present, clear, and unstuck, and start living fully, led by your heart. While you listen and feel this transformation through vibration of word, sound, and song, you'll open up to what's possible and experience your shift.
People are always looking to invest in a good opportunity. So what if you could invest in the future of kids, like a stock? Not the kind of stock that's about making money, but a stock for social change called Better Futures. With your investment, it helps students like me go to college. My name is Charles, and I'm your dividend.
Invest in better futures with UNCF. Visit uncf.org/invest. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. Brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back from the break. I'm hoping that you can hear me now. I know we just lost Shefali. She just let me know we just lost her. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about about where we left off. One of the things that we were just talking about when we were waiting for the break to come through is where are some places that we know we are actually starting to show up now in our lives that we never showed up before. So one of the things that has happened for me is that I actually have been writing since I'm probably about 14 years old. And as someone who loves to write and loves to tell stories and loves to share and loves to teach, I wouldn't let anybody see what I wrote, and I wouldn't let anybody see the things that I used to draw because I used to sketch. I could sit down. I remember, I'd go to Arizona when I was younger, and I'd sit and look at the juniper trees or look at something in the canyon, and I could have sat for 4.5 hours, 5 hours, and it would all just, the time would pass by in a minute, and I had these thick pages of sketches that I never showed anyone in my whole entire life. To this day, I actually now no longer know where they are, but I didn't show them to anybody. So that was sort of interesting to me. I sort of hid. I hid all of that. It was my secret. It was the place that I went to, that I shared. That was my private little secret life. And I never shared it with anybody. And yet, all of a sudden, I've come to the point where, I shouldn't say all of a sudden, in the last 5 years, which is not a surprise to me, I've been starting to let go of chapters, and I've been starting to create books, and I've worked for publishing companies, and now Shefali and I own a publishing company, and we help other people create books. So recently we co-authored a book along with 16 other brilliant people from all around the world called Having Ease with Money. And I can't tell you, as you write a chapter, as you go back and forth, you sit there, and there's times it's so easy to go into judgment. Well, where did I go wrong? And what did I do with money? And where were my mistakes? And it's sort of, you want to use all of this information in order to give other people insight. And, sometimes you even ask yourself, do I know enough to be able to say this? Do I have enough information? Have I taken enough classes? Where am I writing this from? My experience? Or, do I need someone to tell me that I'm an expert before I claim being an expert? And all of these things that go back and forth in your mind before you're willing to show up, because this written work that the whole world is now going to see is a piece of you. And it's a piece of you that people are going to judge. And if you're going to be afraid and remain afraid of that judgment, you're not going to let it go, right? So it took me a really long time. And now one of the books that is going to be coming out in the next 1.5 years of mine is specific to talking to people who have passed away, something I've done since I'm at least 4 years old. And I've never, ever shared a written component about that, but that will come out. Ever since my father passed, it's sort of been channeled through me, that whole entire story. And every time I tell someone little tidbits of pieces of things that I've experienced and ways that it has helped others, they often are so grateful because it's helped them feel better and feel it's helped them with healing or feel more connected. And in some cases, we've even had people, I've been working with people's children because some parents have been very nervous about the fact that their children are hearing things or having these conversations with people that they can't see, or as far as they can tell, and they don't know what's going on or how to guide their child. So it sort of has led to some other things that I never even anticipated, still helping people, which is always one of my biggest targets. So for so long, it kept me, I was in the closet, I guess you could say, and in so many different areas of my life with my skills, my abilities, my talents, what I was willing to show the world, was very much hidden. How about you, Shefali, with writing or anything?
Absolutely, Donna. And that's the thing, it's like I've been wanting to write a book for a very long time. And, what has been holding me back? It's like, am I good enough? Or is what I'm going to share important enough to people? Are they going to want to read this? And it really comes down to, these are my experiences. This is what I've learned. This is my wisdom that I've gleaned from all the many things in my life. And I know that there's value in it and there's value in me, right? And so it's taken me a long time to start writing, and sharing. But I co-authored 5 books now, because one chapter at a time. It's like, okay, what's going on here? Why can't I just write my own? Why do I only want to write one chapter? And so it's taken, couple of years now for me to get to the point where it's like, you know what? Yes, I have something that I'd like to share, and I know it's valuable, and I am of value. And I think that was my biggest thing, not knowing my value or not thinking that I was valuable enough or that my information was valuable enough. Um, and just not being good enough,
Or that I needed someone else who I decided knows more than me to tell me that I knew enough to put my name on something.
Validation.
And it's sort of like, like who are you giving power to that you believe can validate you? Like, if the only person who can do that for you truly is you, but we put that outside of ourselves very often, I think.
Yes. Absolutely. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, is that I was looking for that validation from outside, but that outside, it's not one person. It's like the whole world. It's like, I want the whole world to validate who I am. It's like, really? It took, I mean, I look at it now and I laugh, but it's like, wow, interesting how we can do that to ourselves, and so many people do. It's not just about writing the book. It's about anything in life, right? Anything that we want to create, we still are looking for that validation or someone to say, yeah, you're good enough. Yeah, you can do this, but, do we really need that? No, I don't think so. We can do it on our own and share what we think is valuable for us, and that will be of value to other people. And even if it's not, if this is something you want to do, just do it and see what happens from that, And that's the thing I think people forget or don't look at. Is like, when you have that desire to do something, it's not about looking at the final outcome. It's about just doing it and then seeing what happens afterwards, just being open to the possibilities afterwards, and that gives you so much more expansion and so much more light and so much more freedom instead of controlling the situation all the time. Can you tell them I'm a recovering control freak?
Aren't we all? No, no. It's true, because you want to control people and whether but you can't really control any of that, even though we tell. I mean, you could go out and try and be this person, but you work in a place and you have more than you and that other person in a room, and there's no way you can please everybody. It's just not even possible. And even if you bended and folded yourself in order to please even that one person, Shamara, that one person may require something completely different, but most importantly, there's going to be one person who's going to be miserable and unhappy every day, and that's you.
And that's you. Exactly. And
one of the what I have found that's sort of interesting is that the less I respond to judgment, I have become aware of the fact that it has made some people uncomfortable, because there's people who really don't get the idea that it's possible that you're not bothered by judgment. So it's sort of like,
well, they're looking
either
for a
that
reaction,
must be arrogant, or or I didn't do it hard enough, or I didn't, because they need the reaction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it really
they're wanting to create drama, right?
Well, I think it's a need to create drama, but there's also a power thing there. You responding to someone else's judgment of you, there's power there. And they know that.
Yeah.
And when you're not responding, that could make someone feel like, well, wait a minute, am I not significant enough? Do they not care about my opinion? But then it's still going back to that person. That person is still focused on that person. You hear how that conversation goes, right? And the truth of the matter is, it's just that you start to become comfortable enough in your own skin, and not everybody has to like you, and not everybody has to like everything about you. And it's okay. So when you're okay with that, there are some people who are really not okay with that in their own selves, but they start to get a little bit uncomfortable around you because you are so comfortable being you. It's interesting to see. It's very interesting to watch when you watch the dynamic in a room, for me.
And it's very liberating, It's so liberating for yourself that you don't have to get sucked up in the drama, and you can watch these things play out, and not laugh out loud maybe in their face, but inside you'd be like, oh, this is really interesting to see how people, the dynamics between people and what they're really, how they're processing this. It becomes quite an interesting thing. But being aware of, okay, they are looking for something, there's a reason why they are judging in the first place. So they're looking for that reaction, they're looking for that power, like you're talking about. And sometimes they don't even know why, I mean, they always know, but on the surface, they don't know why they're doing it. You know, they think they're being helpful, like you know, the criticism, the positive criticism. They think they're being helpful. They think they're being caring. They think they're being loving, and not realizing the impact it really does have on you.
And many people have learned in this reality, and you know, in these generations that we're living through at this moment in time, that that if you react, then that's their confirmation that you do care, right? Because if you don't react, then that must mean that you don't value my opinion, you don't care about my point of view.
Yeah.
I'm not important enough for you to be bothered to react to how I feel or what I think as far as that goes. It's a level of a need to be significant, but also that we were often taught, many of us, that you know that you're significant by how somebody reacts to certain things that you say and do.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's just it's interesting that we put ourselves in these dynamics, you know. And so for instead of judging the people around us who are still looking for that reaction and who are reacting and who are judging, you know, it's, you know, what can we do to lighten that situation, right? As by number one, not reacting, you know, just by looking at it and being aware of it. And as soon as you do that, it diffuses the whole situation. It totally, the intensity of the judgment goes away. And then they get a chance to really review and look at, oh, what's going on here? You know, so it gives them a little bit more awareness of something different, a different possibility. And maybe next time, maybe they won't judge as often, right? It all becomes a teaching and a learning.
I don't know if they will or they won't, but you don't, as long as you're not making a choice for an outcome on their part, you're making a choice for an outcome on your part. It's not going to matter.
Yeah.
They might not do it with you because it's not satisfactory. It doesn't provide satisfaction. You know what I mean? Yeah, so they may choose somebody else, but you're not reacting to change them. You're not reacting in order to care for you, and that adds, like, to be loving and nurturing to yourself, to be an allowance, and to, you know, so you could even say, you know, thank you. I appreciate your information, or the awareness, or whatever word you want to put in there, and that doesn't mean you have to make the words significant, but you gave them acknowledgement that you heard them, and, you know, it flows right through you, or whatever it is. I mean, you all know, you feel in your gut what the right thing to say and do at that time is. We're on break again, aren't we? We got to go break?
Yep. We're going on break right now. Yeah.
We'll be back right after these messages.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Hello, I'm Miriam Knight of New Consciousness Review, inviting you to my new show where I interview the rising stars of the conscious awakening. We'll explore the many faces of consciousness in action and intriguing perspectives on life, the universe, and everything in between. Join us each Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Rising Stars Show.
Want to know some fun facts about colonoscopies? Colon cancer is 90% preventable. A colonoscopy can detect and prevent colon cancer in one fell swoop. But here's a not-so-fun fact. Lots of people are so uncomfortable even talking about a colonoscopy that they never get one. If you're 50 or 45 for African Americans, get screened now. Maybe even earlier if you have a family history. To schedule a screening today, visit StopColonCancerNow.com.
everyone. We are back here on Living with Moxie. We're talking about judgment. And one of the things I forgot to mention earlier on the call was we do have a phone number now that you can call into to talk to us, ask questions, talk to our guests when we have them. So the phone number to call in is 1-202-570-7057. That's 1-202-570-7057. And I think that's actually the phone number to call in for all of the shows, all of the shows on OMTimes Radio. So I wanted to share just a quick little example of something that I was judging that was stopping me for so long. And then I did it, did something, and it's like, oh my God, this was so easy and wonderful, and I had so much fun. So, we have Donna and I and other OMTimes experts have a platform on Learn It Live where we teach classes, live classes and recorded classes. And, I was waiting, thinking, what am I going to teach? How am I going to do it? I don't know what I'm doing. Like the platform, I've never done it. So, I was stopping myself. I was limiting myself, saying, no, I can't do it yet. I'm not ready. And then I decided to do a show, a class on the weekend, Saturday, and it was so easy. I had so much fun. I had no problems, and it was like, wow, this was easy. This was fun. I can do this again. So you see how sometimes when we are judging ourselves, we limit ourselves, we stop ourselves, we hold us back, and we don't experience the joy that we can experience, right? When we're judging ourselves. So I wanted to share that really quickly to highlight the fact that, letting go of the judgment can open up your life to so much more, especially joy. And I wanted to share one more point really quickly is that one of my greatest examples of no judgment has been my husband. He just does not judge me at all. It's just amazing how, with him, it is a total judgment-free zone. And it has really allowed me to be who I truly am. It allows me to be exactly as I am, total acceptance. And it's such, there's so much freedom in that, and it's so liberating. So sometimes, people in our lives can really show us what no judgment looks like and feels like, and how wonderful that can be. And so I wanted to talk quickly about that. So Donna and I, we were talking, we just released a book on, I think Thursday, called Having Ease with Money. And it is an international bestseller and doing really well on the charts. But there are so many wonderful tools and resources around having ease with money that you can start to use and implement in your life. So definitely go out and get it. It's on Amazon. You can get it the paperback copy, or you can get it on Kindle, whatever you choose. It is there, called Having Ease with Money. So Donna, did you want to add anything more about that?
No, I just think it's interesting. One of the things that I actually believe, I always talk about thoughts. So, there's going to be some of that in my chapter. I mean, there's components where I talk about, 7 steps that I work with my clients when we're working to actually have more money and plan our future as far as that goes. But there's also this component that is connected to judgment. I mean, if you receive a bill in the mail and start knocking yourself down for not managing your money properly, or you've decided that you're bad at having money, or if you've decided that you don't deserve to have money, or all of those things that are connected to judging you, or judgments that you've accepted that other people have sort of impelled on you, that you've decided that you're going to agree with because you give them more power over their, you value their perception more than you value your own, which, we're often brought up we're taught to do. Those are just thoughts and energy that really does impact your ability to have it. So when you're about having ease with money, learning how to be an allowance a lot more and willing to receive everything, including judgment, is huge. And, the first time that I had to deal with this, I was on, Sheila Gale was interviewing me on her show, and this was about 5 years ago. And I had received an email from my ex who said, "Oh my God, I heard you're going to be on the Sheila Gale show, and I'm so excited. I'm going to be listening in." And I talked to Gary Douglas, who's the founder of Access Consciousness, and Access Consciousness was a bunch of tools that really truly changed and saved my life, literally at one point in time. And now I use that in my toolbox with all of the other modalities that I use. But what wound up happening was I said to him, is there a way, because he had always done these types of radio shows, that I could just block this one person from being there? And he said, well, why do you want to block that person from hearing what you have to say? And I said, well, I don't know. Like at the Judgment, when the person, I didn't want that person to hear that much about my personal life, because it was a very personal component that I was sharing on the show about something that happened that I didn't want them to know. And I didn't want to receive their judgments or their sympathy or their anything, their acknowledgement, nothing. Like it just hurt at the thought of it. And he said, well, truthfully, if you lower your barriers and you're willing to receive it, how does it feel? I said, I don't know if I could do it. And I literally had anxiety about it. And when I was able to do it and then think about it and put it all right in front of me, what I actually got was that it felt more expansive than not doing it. So it was sort of interesting to see that I learned in that process. And then he said, and he was not joking, if you imagine the fact that every time you're willing to receive a judgment with with complete allowance and no significance, you will actually make more money, like $10,000 more per judgment. I started joking and said, okay, well, then people can judge me all they want. But what I got was when I took myself out of that conversation, I sat in the middle of the room and I thought of this person on the other side of the radio and me sharing this information, I lowered my barriers. And it was hard for me, man. Even there in a room by myself, I lowered them some more. And what I was resisting receiving was receiving a lot of things, including that person's kindness and caring, including anybody else whose energy was similar to that person's kindness and caring, including money from anyone who may have a similar vibration as that person who might have been buying my products or my books that were out at the time, anything along those lines. And that's when I really started playing with judgment, but it really does impact your money flow. So it's something to really play with and see how much you can start to let go of, especially those ones that you have of your own. But when you're resisting it, it's often what we're resisting that's going to create the most for us. Like it'll create so much for you. So wherever you're noticing tremendous resistance, I start to ask some questions around that. What are you resisting? For me, I was resisting receiving. And that was receiving nurturing and caring and help and support. I was for things that would really be a credible contribution to my life, but I wouldn't let it happen. So start to asking questions, right?
So Donna, one of the things you mentioned, and you just mentioned again right now, was about lowering your barriers. Can you quickly explain to people what that means and how you do that?
Yeah, really quickly. I guess we're running out of time already.
Yeah.
So I tell people all the time when we're talking, when there's something that Shefali or I or anybody says, really energetically say what we're saying to do is lower your barriers. So I'd like you to realize that, very often when you're walking down the street, I'm in New York. I did a lot of work in California too. You're walking down the street, whether it's LA or New York City. You're walking down the street, and you tend to really raise your barriers. You notice you're walking. You're not paying attention to anybody. You're sort of walking past. You don't want anyone to notice you look at them. There's sort of like these barriers, these energetic barriers that we put around ourselves as we're going through our days. And when we're with people who we may care about, we don't want them to see how we feel about a certain situation or whatever that is. We create these barriers. And we create them from the minute we get up in the morning, the minute you start to judge yourself, the minute you put on clothes that don't fit right, you start to create them. So you can energetically ask yourself, and often I tell people to take a breath when they're doing it, to just lower your barriers. And the second I said that, you guys have already done it. Every single person who's listening to this right now has lowered them. Then I would say lower them some more. You don't have to know what that means. It's just you allowing yourself to be that much more vulnerable, that much more open, and that much more real in that 10 seconds. You could imagine it being your door opening versus your door being closed. You could imagine you having a fence that rises up from the ground that you're pushing down. You don't have to imagine anything. You can just trust that as you say it, it's actually happening. But it's your willingness to be 100% vulnerable with the whole entire world around you and just be, and not worry about pulling anything up or having to protect yourself because you're all connected. So you just lower your barriers. You lower your barriers and you receive. And it was very scary for me to do, I have to tell you. But now it's sort of like when I do it, I instantly feel so much more power, so much more confidence, so much more balance, because you're connected to everyone and everything, and it's just, wow, it's just an incredible feeling. So, but we resist it. So, because we've taught ourselves we have to protect ourselves, but we're protecting ourselves from receiving everything around us. Does that help?
It does, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I was just wanted to share that with people in case they didn't know what that meant. And so I know we're coming to the end of the show already. It's like, wow, where does the time go? But I wanted to take a moment, Donna, just to talk about next week's show. We have a special guest with us. Linda Albright is with us next week.
Linda Albright, one of my favorite people in the world. I have so many of those favorite people in the world. So I love her very much. She was my coach, actually. I use Linda Albright as my business coach. She is absolutely brilliant and very much connected to spirit and making sure that you keep that part alive in what you're choosing, which is part of the reason why I chose her, because a lot of people always felt spirit and money do not go together. But she has helped more women around here in this area become, those six-figure income creators, and those are people who believe in healing and helping and all of that, who didn't think that you could have money and be spiritual. And she's turned that into a phenomenal system, and we love entrepreneurs who are going to come on and tell you that you can have money too. So I can't wait to have her on the show.
Wonderful. I'm excited too, because it's going to be fun, and there's going to be, practical wisdom that she's going to be sharing with us. She's going to be sharing the 3 biggest lies that keep money and fulfillment from coming your way. So that's next week on Tuesday, September 20th is going to be our special guest, Linda Albright. So thank you so much, everyone. This was a wonderful, wonderful call, wonderful show, like always. Donna, I'm
Thank
so
you,
glad
everybody.
You were here too.
See you all next week.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week, and we'll see you on Tuesday. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.